Hi, and welcome to the Foxy Business Hour. This is our first live stream, and so we are really excited to start doing it in this new format where we can get subject matter experts. Sorry about that. Where we can get subject matter experts to get with you, small business owners, and other people that are interested so that you can learn things that you would not normally learn on a day-to-day basis. Today, we have an amazing person. He runs one of the IT companies, one I use myself, Digital Brainz. So today we have Brad Savage.
Thanks, LaDonna. Really appreciate the invite to Foxy Business Hour. Appreciate what you and Susan and your team do for the business community by bringing in industry experts and helping them educate on little bits and pieces of small businesses. So I'm definitely excited to be here. Little new for me, the live stream without having an immediate video interaction with the audience. So bear with me if I request some interaction. I appreciate the responses on chat, so I can answer any questions. But before we get started, this presentation is going to be about cybersecurity and like IT strategies for small businesses. And a little disclaimer: this presentation is intended to help small businesses think about their IT security posture and general best practices. But if you're listening, your industry will likely have additional requirements not covered today. But to get started, I'm Brad Savage with Digital Brainz. We are a managed service provider in the Tampa Bay area, and we help provide IT support and cybersecurity best practices for small to medium businesses. We've been around since 2003, so we've watched the industry grow from my industry, from an IT perspective, grow from clients just calling us when they have issues. So we sit there and wait for the bat phone to ring, and we reactively help to where we're proactively maintaining and monitoring clients' environments 24/7. We have a full help desk. We are considered to be, for our clients, their cybersecurity experts, and glad to definitely be sharing some of my basic knowledge today with you. My hope today is that you take away at least one security item to review and implement in your business. And another goal would be to address some questions live. So it's just not a one-way street here. So if you can on YouTube, just go ahead. If you have questions while we're going through some content, go ahead and put it in the chat. Me and the team will see it, and I will answer any questions as we go through it, best of my ability and as quickly as possible. So would appreciate that. That way you're not listening to me for 20, 30, 40 minutes straight. Let's get cranking. I'm going to go ahead and share my slide. All right. Before we get into ways to protect your business, let's be real. Small businesses in general do not really prioritize cyber security. And based off some of the facts on the screen, about half of the cyber attacks out there in the world are on small businesses. It's because we're the low-hanging fruit, and the average cost of a small business cyber attack is somewhere around $200,000. So can your business survive that unplanned $2,000 expense? I know the majority cannot, and 60% of small businesses typically actually close within 6 months of any kind of breach. So if the breach costs $200,000 and that business can't recover from it, 60% of the businesses actually close their doors after a breach. It's pretty high number, and kind of shows the importance of having some sort of cybersecurity security plan. Small business, all of us are, I'm assuming most businesses on here are small business. We're all the easy targets because we're too busy running the day-to-day business. If you're the CEO, you're also probably have a hand in HR. You probably also have a hand in marketing. You might be also having be in charge of your IT or IT security plan. So that obviously will create gaps in security, and it's pretty much a guarantee. The decades ago, small businesses didn't really have access to tools and security tools, excuse me, that enterprise level companies would. Enterprise level companies would spend millions of dollars to protect their business, where small businesses couldn't afford that. Nowadays, small businesses actually have access to enterprise level tools for small basic costs or subscriptions. We've had interactions with small businesses. Well, first, before I do that, I go into that. If you know someone and that runs a business that have had a breach or a cyber attack, and the round value, don't name any names, just kind of share in the chat, maybe an example, a quick 1-sentence example before I share mine, so we can kind of compare what we've experienced, especially in the last 12 months or so. I know potential clients have contacted us after a breach, and whether it's through email, whether it's hacked in their system, whether it's through social media watching. We've had clients call in and say, hey, we've had this breach. We accidentally transferred $300,000 or $60,000, or we paid this vendor. We didn't send the email, but we accidentally paid this vendor, $80,000. Have you guys has anybody out there experienced, not your company, but maybe someone close to that the same type of experience? There you go. See, I've seen a couple of the chats right now. Someone had a ransom breach, the open link, $25,000. Ooh, that's ransomware is a good point. That's Tim Crandall. Ransomware is it's not as prevalent now, but it's still a concern. That's where if you're not familiar with ransomware, it's when someone locks your data and has you pay a dollar amount to be able to recover it. And we'll go over some ways to help prevent that, or at least recover from it for a small business's standpoint. Yeah, see, there's I love these examples. There's the email. Email's a big one. Let me go back to that slide. That way we can review that. Email's a big one. Email is, the people, we'll talk about this in a second, but people are the targets. And if your email gets compromised, or even your vendor's email gets compromised, you pay your vendors weekly, monthly, whatever it is, or when a transaction happens. If someone accesses a vendor's email account and sits there and waits for months and watches the types of transactions and interactions with their clients, and let's just say you're one of their clients. If a vendor sends you an email that looks legitimate, but the only thing they change is that routing number, and that's how they typically bill you, it's really difficult for you to be able to catch that the vendor was hacked. We'll talk about security awareness training a little bit, ways to identify those things. But just keep in mind, if you are a small business, you probably already have been attacked and you are a target. And my hope is for you that you're doing some of the basic things so that either if something does happen, it's recoverable, and you're not one of those statistics where 60% of businesses close within 6 months of any kind of attack. Appreciate y'all. I love the interaction. All right. So how do you protect yourself? How do I protect myself from a small business? I'm going to go through a few things. I always get the question, right? I'm talking to small businesses. I have antivirus, so my business is protected, right? And I want to give the sarcastic answer back. Sure, absolutely. If this was 20 years ago, that's what we did. We all had antivirus. We all did our Windows patches, and we all had spam filter on our email. And we thought we were protected. Back then, it's all reactive. But nowadays, you definitely have to have a layered approach from physical to virtual across all the technology you use. Those are all ways. There's so many ways for a breach to happen. And so a small business can actually do a lot of little things to help increase their chances of not being, exploited. I'll go over some of these right now on the slide. Firewalls and antivirus. We all know what antivirus is. We've all been using it forever, whether it's personal or business. Something that has it's reactive, but something that's kind of watching your device on what's going on. And firewall mostly, it could be device based, but in the context of, let's say you have a physical office space. It's typically the device that sits in between your network and your office and the external world. So you want to have something that's watching the network traffic go in and out across your internet. That way there's some opportunity to protect your users and your network and devices before it even gets into your office. Multi-factor authentication, we all know what that is. But it seems very basic, but something you really want to focus on when it comes to your email accounts, your banking, any kind of cloud applications you log in, anywhere where there is customer data, financial data, any kind of information you want to protect for your business. The basic username and email login doesn't work anymore because that can be compromised so easily. So MFA, whether it's bio, or you get an email, or you have an app on your phone that asks for a code, any type of data you have should not be accessible, or ways of communication should not be accessible without a multi-factor authentication. All right, network segmentation. This is pretty basic, but we come across in a lot of small businesses where you get set up. You open up a physical location. You might see clients, you might not. You might have vendors in your space, but you ordered the basic internet service provider locally. It's Spectrum or Frontier typically, and you had them set up your Wi-Fi, and you use your phone, you use your laptop, your tablet, your smart TV. You use all these things to access the Wi-Fi and the internet without having to plug into a physical outlet. Do you share that Wi-Fi information with somebody else who walks through the door that's not part of your organization? The answer is yes. That's what network segmentation is. That's a solution you need to set up. Very basic. On the Wi-Fi devices, and I'm sure everybody's logged into an airport or other things, other places, all you do is set up a separate, usually typically referred to as SSID, so a network name. And when a client or a visitor logs into that Wi-Fi, quote, free Wi-Fi, you want to make sure that internet connection they're using has zero access to your network, which means the where your client data is stored, where your sensitive information is stored, or how it's accessed. So the only thing they can do is utilize the internet, but nothing on your network. They can't print to a printer. They can't search your shared files. They can't access email, etc. So network segmentation is a basic function that and a simple quick fix if you do share your internet in your office with everyone. Patch management, that's something basic for your physical device. So if you have a Windows device, you can turn on, automatic updates and make sure that there's any kind of vulnerabilities in your operating system. So Windows, Mac, etc., making sure those are continuously updated. A little caveat on that though, if you can auto update things and trust the Microsofts of the world to patch your machines, but if you use certain software, if you access certain things externally, you might want to talk to your trusted IT provider if you should turn on automatic updates, or somebody should be managing it for you. As we do in our world, we do patch management for clients, and we understand their environment, the tools they use, so we don't automatically deploy certain patches that, for example, that Microsoft to put out, because we know that it hasn't been tested throughout all the types of environments we have. So we kind of pick and choose which ones that our clients get. But patch manage is something easy you can turn on tomorrow if you don't automatically have it on. All right. This is the part I hope I get some questions on, and maybe some real world experiences that you've had. If you don't remember anything from this group of slides, please remember this slide, okay? Your best defense for your business is your team, right? Is your staff. But your biggest vulnerability is also your team and your staff. So look at that stat, 90% of breaches begin with human error. So you may be the business owner and you think day and night ways that you prevent. You might be able to identify what's coming in, whether it's phishing emails or other things coming. We're going to talk about phishing emails specifically, but an email comes in that's not legitimate, you might be able to tell automatically. But will the rest of your staff, if they receive the same email, understand that? And I've given presentations in the past where the one click can literally take down your business. So as far as how to do phishing awareness on your own, I mean, just from a routine standpoint, you and your staff should be discussing security awareness training type items. So like if you have a service that routinely sends like test emails for phishing campaigns to see if your staff can detect what's fake, what's not. And phishing means they're basically phishing for you to click on an email or reply to an email and send information or run an attachment. That way, somebody remotely who might be malicious can access your network and your sensitive information. There is some, if you're doing it on your own, there's some, you can search YouTube. There's plenty of sources out there to find education material to share with your staff. Just when you do that, make sure you're checking for quality sources, know where the content comes from, maybe select content that's related to your actual team, and what type of industry you're in, and obviously look at dates and when contents come out, because I'll use Garvin Accounting as an example. They're probably close to tax season for their commercial and personal clients. They may want their staff to be updated on tax-related phishing scams and more recent ones. That way they can, one, educate their clients and send information out, but also educate their staff. That way they kind of know how to relate to their clients when they call in, or the clients have questions about valid emails or not. Oh, great question. I got a question from Justin Velarde at Velarde Digital. With the sophistication of bad actors and AI and cloned email addresses, phone numbers, etc., what should we be looking for or verifying in emails to be sure the messages or emails are legit? Fantastic question, dude. I appreciate that. That is a long answer, to be honest, but there are basic things that you should be looking for, and let's talk about two different things. One, emails you're not necessarily used to receiving. So maybe a new vendor, maybe a new relationship, and you get something that looks like it might be right or it might be a little off. Verify the email address and domain name that it came from. Read through the content carefully. Things that I would be very hesitant on immediately. Clicking links clicking links in the email, and especially depending on the topic, if it's financial related, payment related, I would avoid clicking any links. Those can be verified over a phone call, right? Hey, Justin, I know we got a new relationship going. I know I owe you money. Just calling because I got this email from your team, and I wanted to make sure that before I click this link to go to a payment portal, that I verify that this is legit. And then let's go to the other side where it's from somebody who you already have a relationship with. You automatically scan your brain and eyes automatically scan the from email address, the subject line, and maybe the first couple lines in an email. Taking 2 seconds to take a breath before you click a link, just because it comes from Justin, and Justin and I have a great relationship. And Velarde Digital, I get all kinds of communication from them because maybe they handle my marketing. But before I start clicking links, really understand and read the email content, because if you receive constant content, you kind of identify and understand their language they typically use, maybe like the tone they typically use, and if anything at all seems off, man, give that vendor a call, or at least forward the email to them and say, hey, this is legit. We get those from time to time, even as an IT company, and we love it because clients will forward an email over from us and say, hey, is this legitimate? Because it seems like we haven't received something that looks like this in a month or two, and we want to make sure before we take any action on it. That way we can follow up. We'd rather that than somebody be spoofing your company, my company, and potentially create an issue. But thanks for that. I hope I answered that question, Justin. So I appreciate that. I do want to kind of know if anybody has an ongoing training and how often you actually do that for your team, whether it's via email or videos per month, or if you actually have kind of a round table, discussions. Because security awareness training isn't a one-time thing. It's something that's continuously needs to happen. And I'll skip to the third little arrow on the slide: incident reporting. Good practices and great practices. Good practices are having consistent education. So whether it's fake emails going out to your team just to kind of help make sure we're all on the same page and identifying and able to identify phishing or not, and then videos, watching education, continuous education. We all do that for our industries. This is one little thing, literally 2 to 4 minutes a month is kind of what we require from our end, and pretty much what, um, um, if you have like cyber liability insurance or other things that mandate your IT security, you're going to have security awareness training along with it. But that's good. And then great is if you actually have a team conversation. So whether someone accidentally clicks on an email or whether someone says, hey, this is 100% not legit, it got through our systems, which happens, nothing is foolproof. I'm going to bring this to the table to my team so they understand what I'm getting and see if anybody else is getting the same type of communication to attack us. That way we're all on the same page how we should treat this, and we're all able to identify what what's not legit. Looking at some of the questions just to make sure I address anything. Look like a question of a bit ago from Steve. Are VPNs effective? Yes, happy to go back down that rabbit hole some, but VPNs are effective, and VPN is virtual private network. You'd use those. I highly recommend you use those. The general question, so out of context, I'm going to answer in a general way. If you access public Wi-Fi for your business, and you're doing it on your own without a recommendation and guiding from a managed service provider, an IT company, I would certainly have a VPN service on any kind of public Wi-Fi network that you're doing business over. There's ways that people can get in, and that helps you kind of protect yourself and your business a little more. It's not the only solution, but VPNs work. If you're VPNing it into like an office or things and you're moving high amounts of data, VPNs tend to be sluggish and not the best solution. But from a general standpoint, to answer your question, yes, VPNs work, and I do, whether it's personal or business. If you're accessing sensitive data across a public Wi-Fi, I would, at the very minimum, I would do that over a VPN service. Ooh, password hygiene. I got another question about passwords. How often should we be changing passwords, and do you recommend a platform or program? 100%. And Justin, you threw out LastPass. None of us, look, no business owner, nobody personally likes to juggle and manage 1,000 passwords, right? But it's still a requirement. There's ways around using password with certain applications, and verifying once and then using MFA from that point on, or a code or a bio, but we all can't get around passwords, at least in today's age, right? So make passwords complex, okay? And even if it's something you can't remember, there are password management tools out there. LastPass is a great one. Just Google password management. There's probably a top 3 on there that would be recommended. We kind of recommend specific ones. LastPass is one of them for clients. But the theory behind it is you authenticate and protect one program that saves your access to multiple types of sites and services, and then through that you can click a button and log into things easily without having to remember that difficult password. But as long as that service, no one else has access to that service but you, then theoretically no one has access to those passwords, and they're more difficult to guess, which means somebody can't just run a tool and log into your accounts. And likely you have MFA around them as well, so that it's not just the password protecting it. So you have control 2 ways of accessing those accounts. I did have a note I wanted to, I mentioned cyber liability insurance. Not sure if everyone on this call who's watching has this, but for small businesses, in my opinion, and talk with your commercial insurance agent, but in my opinion, from a IT security company perspective, I would talk to your commercial insurance agent about having cyber liability insurance and what that means for your industry. It's typically not a high dollar amount coverage, but it's in my opinion, it's a requirement for small businesses, especially for how much and how much exposure we all have and how much our data. You talk about that $200,000. The average cost for a small business to recover from a breach or a hack or whatever it is, that cyber liability insurance will help with that. And it not only helps with that, but it helps with your image and your branding. Because those are a cost as well. If you have to disclose to 1,000 clients that their information was potentially breached, what kind of image impact do you think that has? So there's a cost to that, right? There's a future cost to that, having to reestablish trust with those clients. So I would highly encourage everyone to talk to their commercial insurance agent for cyber liability. All right, I think I've been preaching this for decades. Backup. It's one of the simplest forms of like an IT strategy we can all have to prevent losing our entire business, whether it's a device crashing, whether it's a team member exiting, deleting all of our data, whether it's a ransomware that locked all of our live data. Backups are one of the most fundamental things that we all know personally, because I'm sure like me, a lot of you personally have, 20 years ago, maybe not all of you are as old as me, but 20 years ago when I was taking pictures of, family, friends, events, etc., it's all on an external device, and that device crashes and I didn't back it up, which means I never have access to those pictures and memories ever again. Backup is important. I will say this, if you are currently using an external drive for your backup solution, like a physical drive where you plug into a computer, where you plug into a server, and old school used to unplug those and change them out every Monday and Friday. You take them, put them in your car, you drive them home and put them in a safe or on your, end table next to your couch. And then that was our backup strategy. Any kind of physical device can fail. So at the very minimum, any kind of data you have should be backed up on a cloud-based solution. And there are a million options out there for cloud-based solutions, and very, very reasonable from a cost perspective. If you are utilizing a vendor who stores your data, so if you have a CRM or a sales tool, or something that's storing all of your client data, basically, I would encourage you just to look through your agreement, or contact your representative and ask the question, hey, what is the backup strategy for my data and your company, just to kind of have that on record, and to make sure. And if whatever their answer is, send it to your IT contact and have them review it and see if it's a acceptable response. Not only data backup, but access to data, right? If you have a team of 10 people, think about their roles. And if you have shared drives stored on, terabytes of data stored on a central shared drive, do all 10 people and their roles really need access to every piece of data? You really need to have privileges set in place to make sure. So if there is an incident, so if employee number one has very minimal needs as far as access to your client, financial, whatever it is, data, if they are the reason for the breach, if they're a reason for a hack, and somebody gets to through their accounts access to your company, if if it's not necessary for them to access most of the data, then lock them down, and that way if a breach occurs, that breach is limited to whatever that user is limited to whatever that user has access to. So I'd encourage you to kind of review whatever kind of data you have, what kind of team members you have, and then go through what levels of access control you can put in place to be able to protect that data, just in case there's something that happens. Or, in which if you're a business owner, we don't want to think about it, but if there's a disgruntled employee or somebody who's stealing or accidentally deletes data, you don't want, if there's privileges in place to where they don't have access to sensitive data or critical data that would completely take down the company if something accidental delete or something malicious were to happen, then you're kind of protecting from those layers as well. Let's see. So response plan, very simple. We all have access to AI tools now that can develop all kinds of documentation and plans for us. So you could pretty much copy and type this little prompt in, and AI will spit out a response for you to at least give you a guideline. But talk to your team, talk to your leadership. If there is a breach, if there is some sort of security risk or malicious attack that happens, talk about a plan, of how you're going to respond. Document who you would call. What levels of the business would you isolate? How would you communicate that to your leadership, to your team, to clients? How would you communicate that issue or that process to everyone? Just make sure you have to talk through it with your team. Even if you don't document it, talk through it with your leadership team. It's important because in the moment when something happens, I've been a part of it for a number of clients. In the moment when something happens, just panic sets in. So, I don't want to say it's not if, but when, but if something does happen and there is a breach or you have a threat of a breach, because just because the alarm bells start ringing doesn't mean something's going wrong. You just have to figure out what issues and what vulnerabilities you have, but at least talk about how your team's going to respond. All right, just going to look through some of the questions again. Is there a better solution for public networks when I travel? For instance, going to be on a cruise later this year. We'll need to do payroll for clients. Good question. I think that goes back to, I think this user, I happen to be your IT company. So we can talk offline about this too. But in general, I would talk with a trusted IT advisor. And in general, this is maybe where Steve was going with his questions. A layer of some sort of VPN, virtual private network service, especially if you do all the processing on your local machine and not like a virtual environment, is probably a good practice. And then talk to your IT company about what other tools, if you are accessing a public network, on a cruise or a hotel, and doing business related things, what other things do they have or can they put in place to make sure that traffic to and from your device is being monitored? It's a good question. Definitely a good question. So I know a lot of this information is is probably overwhelming, especially if you have nothing in place and you don't know where to start. I know a lot of the information is probably new, confusing, overwhelming, but these topics, and I believe this is being recorded and published on YouTube, so you can go back and look at fast forward through the slides and look at some check marks, because these are all basic things that you can bring to the table to your team and go through an implementation plan. And a lot of these are very, very easy to deploy, whether you have a service or just a discussion, or if it's good practice for your business. So this is I just kind of put together a 6-month plan and some items that you could go through for each month. And it's just kind of a good starter, because the sooner you start protecting your business, the more you reduce your chances of becoming a victim of cyber criminals. Looking at some of the questions or the comments. Oh yeah, that's great. I wish we could turn on the two-way video as well. Read through the chats. If you're on here, read through the chats of Velarde Digital sharing some of the issues they see in their marketing world. Some of the scams through Meta and policy violations, those are very common. And like they said, never click the links and directly go. That's a good example of directly going to the vendor or whoever's making these claims, trying to get you to take some action on an email, whether it's clicking a link, opening up an attachment, forwarding it to all of your friends. Go to the actual vendor's site if there is some sort of action item you need to take, then it should be on their general site or within your account on that site as a notice as well, and not just in an email format. So good point. I did plan on this being pretty much the end of the presentation, but since we do have a few more minutes, I do have one more slide. Bonus slide. So I could talk for days and hours about AI, right? But this discussion is around a basic security for your business, right? So if you are using AI tools, whether it's for like your vendors. So if you're using a CRM and your vendor has AI tools, make sure those AI tools, and you can have this discussion with your vendor. If you're using a CRM, for example, and the CRM allows you to chat with an AI bot and ask it questions based off of your CRM information. So all the details of your clients, your sales, your finances, whatever is stored in that CRM. Just make sure that, and you can talk to your vendor about this, just make sure that the controls are in place to access your, that we already talked about, login name, password, MFA at minimum, that your vendor password isn't admin password 1234 for everyone to access your CRM. You wouldn't want to use an AI tool for that, because then all of a sudden somebody gets access to the vendor account through email and password, or username and password. They now have the AI tool to help them be a lot more efficient in accessing all of your client data. So just make sure the login and vendor has good security practices. Data privacy considerations. So we all use, when the world of GPT opened our eyes, everyone was going there searching and starting to use it as a replacement for Google, which that's basic thinking nowadays. AI is way bigger than a search engine, but we were all asking in information, please, what would you suggest I do for this plan for my business? What would you suggest as a contract for my business? Make sure any kind of language model you're using, any kind of account you're using, if you are using a public non-paid account, red flags. I would suggest not even using them, but definitely don't use them for your business, because you're training models based off of your information, your proprietary information in your business. So make sure you are using a tool that understands that, and you can shut off the learning of the outside world. You only want to train your little bubble for your business in most cases. And compliance, if you have an industry, whether you're in the legal world, whether you're in finance, if you have sensitive data, there's somebody who regulates how you store that data and how it's accessed. Make sure whatever AI tools you use meet those with compliance requirements. And it's very likely that you're going to have to actually reach out to those compliance companies to understand what the actual AI compliances are, because in some cases there might not be any written yet. So you want to be mindful of what's coming also. Choosing AI and choosing AI tools. We will talk to clients sometimes, or get questions from small businesses about AI, and some of the first questions I ask are, what types of tools are you using? Are you allowing your team to use? And sometimes the answer is, oh, whatever they want. Red flags. If you are planning to use AI for your business, and it's one thing if you are the innovator and you are the one testing and you are the one trying to figure out how to implement it, or you're looking to outsource that service to a vendor who is an expert on AI. If you're allowing your team to use AI, make sure you determine what types of tools that they get to use. And make sure you're paying for those licenses for those tools, and make sure they know that it's not a free for all, because while you are the business owner, while you're a leadership, and you think and breathe safety, security, protecting the business night and day, one of your team members may not be. And to try and do something quick for a client or for something internal, they may put some proprietary information out there that you can't get it back. So just make sure security is a part of your AI selection, not an afterthought. Yeah, I appreciate the comment. Most companies don't track it, don't govern it, and don't even really realize it's happening. That gap is quietly increasing, reach risk and long-term cost. Absolutely, especially through AI. Thanks, Justin, for being involved and interacting. Appreciate that. This is the end of my presentation. But I just wanted to kind of sum up with if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to LaDonna or Susan. They have my information about the topics. This will be accessible through YouTube. So if you need a checklist, go through and make your checklist of basic things you can do. And as a reminder, these are just basic items. If you have nothing in place, basic items to get you started that will put you ahead of a lot of small businesses and will help protect immediately. You'll have gaps depending on your industry, maybe depending on your industry, depending on vendor partners you have, maybe agreements that you might have with a client that have requirements. But this is a really good start to getting started. And as a reminder, I'll go back to the most important thing we discussed, so I want to end with that, is training your team. Train your team, have discussions. If you're not doing anything now, talk to them. You probably have a weekly meeting or at least a monthly meeting. Bring up security awareness training, identifying, fake emails, fake calls, and then making sure that everybody's comfortable bringing questions and concerns to the table at any time with your leadership to be able to evaluate, someone attacking your business. But with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I am Brad Savage of Digital Brainz, and I appreciate your time. I'm going to pass this back off to the Garvin accounting team and let her wrap up the lunch meeting. Go ahead, LaDonna. I appreciate you.
You didn't know if it had switched over to me or not. Sorry, this is our first live stream, so a little bit of hiccups. What's that one? Thank you so much, Brad, for all of this great information. I hope y'all really learned something from this. We will be having another one of these next month where we will be doing estate planning, a whole webinar on estate planning. So I hope that you can join us for that as well. And feel free to look at all of our past lunch and learns that we've done and podcasts. And we hope that we continue to get subject matter experts that can help you to answer your questions. Again, thank you for joining us today. I'm LaDonna Garvin with Garvin Accounting Solutions, and this was Foxy Business Hour.